Bună dimineața și bun găsit, doamnelor și domnilor, la o nouă întâlnire online pe care vă propune Energinomics. Împreună cu prietenii noștri de la IBM avem pregătit pentru dumneavoastră acest webinar dedicat securității și eficienței în sectoarele de utilități și energie, în ceea ce privește zona de IT, de operare și firește IoT. După cum știți deja, vom avea 4 vorbitori din partea IBM care nu vorbesc limba română și de asemenea între participanții înscriși pentru sesiunea de astăzi 157, dacă am numărat eu bine mai devreme. O bună parte sunt experți care nu vorbesc limba română. Ca urmare, întreaga conferință de astăzi se va desfășura în engleză începând de acum. Hello everybody and welcome to the webinar proposed by IBM with the help of Energinomics. My name is Gabriela Văcăriță, I am Chief Editor with Energinomics and I'll be the moderator for today. Increased security and efficiency for energy and utilities. This is the title of the event and we have the pleasure to welcome today 4 experts from IBM. I will introduce them very briefly for the moment, and then I will say a few words about the format of today's meeting. Welcome, please. So, Mr. Mike Kehoe, Mr. Adam Laurie, Mr. Rafał Czerniewicz, and Mr. Ahmed El Nass. These 4 gentlemen will be with us for 60 to 90 minutes today in order to present some ideas in relations with the theme that convinced you to join us today. So from my part, just a few more words at the moment. I will tell you how to make use of the MyConnector platform you are registered into. So there are many opportunities for online networking. Please make use of them. Please also send us questions using the Q&A button or comments, and you can also enter in a conversation by using the chat room session. We will also have we'll have 1 or 2 questions from you, so please pay attention and send us your thoughts. And this conversation is available strictly on MyConnector platform, so please stay with us in this format for the next 90 minutes. I will give the floor now to the first speaker of today. Please just let me introduce a little bit the thematics, subject matters. We are talking about insights from IBM on how to stay ahead on cyber threats. It is a webinar built by for professional in the energy and utility sector. I am glad to notice that many of our attendees today are coming from this area, from such companies. We are talking about these subjects at the moment, and the Internet of Things has already changed the landscape in these industries. Not so much in Romania, I'm afraid, but all the premises are that things are going to change fast in the next a few years. So take good care on security and listen to Mr. Michael Kehoe, EMEA Threat Management Program Director with IBM Security. Hi, Mike, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Gabriel. Let me share my screen. "37 years ago, IBM produced the AT-PC computer, and what they thought from a cyber point of view to make it safe is by putting a lock onto it, that therefore their executives could sleep well at night. 37 years on, we are now seeing that organized crime has entered our IT systems, and the world of cybercrime is a real and present danger. Unfortunately, only last year, the amount of money spent to protect our systems, not the amount of lost, but the amount spent, was 167 billion. And unfortunately, these types of solutions, they have no business value because they're actually just stopping the bad guys coming in. They produce nothing, but just to keep our systems safe, and they will always exist. Three items that engineers hate, because engineers love to make sure that they produce value, that they produce a solution, and they make things better. So this is why cybersecurity is such a horrible blight on engineering. So let me say hello, my name is Mike Kehoe. I'll be with you for the next 20 minutes, and I'm going to talk about what you should be thinking about in relation to security and, of course, IT security. For half my professional career, over 30 years, I've been an electrical engineer working in city management, working in power and distribution control systems factories. And then for the latter half of my career, I've been working as a business consultant, working on system designs, working in IT solutions, and so on. So I have a very good perspective of what the OT environment is and what the IT environment is. So what is cybersecurity? Well, I picked up a simple explanation of what cybersecurity is. I marked out the words. Nowhere in this security do they mention operation security, IT security. It is the protection of networks from distribution and damage. And that's what we have to look at, that our job is to protect against disruption and damage against our networks. But cybercrime doesn't care about IT and OT because it's not motivated about the technology. Cybercrime is motivated across four items. Number one is monetization. How can I make money if I abuse the system of an organization? And we've seen this by the target attack in the United States, where cyber aggressors went in through the HVAC systems, through the PLCs, onto SCADA, into the main systems, and eventually worked their way into the point of sales and was able to extract credit cards. So they used the OT system to attack the IT system, which in essence they were looking to steal credit cards from Target, which is a large US retailer. But there's other motivations. There's theft and espionage. And you're seeing other companies looking at the development of companies maybe in smart grid, in new green energies, where they can actually get a competitive advantage by stealing their understanding, stealing their solutions, stealing their technology. What also motivates individuals is nation states, and you're seeing nation states, whether it be cybercrime, war crime, or opposing ideologies, where one state can inflict damage on another state by taking out their utilities, taking out their power, taking out their water, taking out their air traffic control systems. And finally, you have malicious damage, where you see individuals who might have a revenge upon a company, and therefore they're able to get into certain systems, damage those systems, and destroy them. So motivation of the cyber aggressor isn't about the technology, it's about what they can gain from their attack. And that's key, as you explain to your management, but it's not about protecting IT and OT, it's really about protecting against these attacks and what motivates these attacks. So let me explain what has facilitated and not facilitated the attacks on OT and IoT in recent. What has kept us safe, probably up to maybe 5 years ago, is now becoming a less of an obstacle. And what I would first say, coming from both these fields, is that it was very easy to look at IT and look at maybe HTML, look at SQL injection, because I understand the technology and understand how to steal credit cards or to steal people's information. It was a lot more difficult to understand the technology of maybe SCADA, PLCs, ladder language, Profibus, Intibus, ASI, and have that knowledge gap. So you found that the cyber criminals would actually be more comfortable in IT than OT. But this gap is closing. Cyber criminals realize that there is ability to make a money or espionage or revenge by learning the technology in OT. And you're seeing that now with the increase of attacks. The other thing we see that kept us relatively safe is there a convergence. You're seeing our technology that ran our engineering sites is also the technology that's now integrated into our business sites, like I explained with the target, where it shared networks. But you're also seeing modeling systems that might look after load balancing in E&U been directly connected to our generation sites, and therefore models that are highly evolved technical systems in IT can actually have a direct control over our engine facilities as well. So you're seeing this convergence of systems, so making it easier to jump between both our OT and IT. And finally, the cyber aggressors are becoming smarter. They're understanding that, yes, it was easy to steal credit cards from a bank. Yes, it was easy to do ransomware against maybe a large company, but we actually can think of more elaborate and intelligent attacks that can monetize money from our OT environments, such as ransomware, where we might shut down a plant, such as going in and stealing billing information to our clients who are actually using our energy production. So you're seeing cyber criminals become and organized crime become a lot more sophisticated in the ways they can make money, both in the IoT, the OT, and IT. So what kept us safe, unfortunately, now is not an obstacle as much as we used to think. So what I'm trying to do in the last 4 slides to help you explain to the decision makers in your organization that cyber threats are growing. Yes, they've been growing in the IT organization, but equally they've been growing in the OT organization. And the reason for that is because the rewards that cyber aggressors see has constantly increased. So it's not something that we have to start anew. Why don't we learn from what's gone before? Because we've seen that the IT organization has had this problem for probably a little more years than ourselves, but not too many more. In fact, IBM's #1 security system, which is QRadar, was only designed in 2001. So you could say that the phenomenon or the growth of organized crime and cyber has only been really around for the last 20 years. Of course, we saw it in the 90s and 80s, but the explosion has really started in the last 20 years. So we should learn for what the IT teams have done for us to learn our OT teams. But then we got to say, well, why are we defending ourselves? And the #1 reason we have to defend ourselves against cyber aggressors who look to profitize against our solutions is the #1, we have to make sure, because we run systems that have large voltages, large currents, might be moving large amounts of hot substance, might have toxic waste substances, and so on and so forth. We have to protect against life and property, because these cyber aggressors mightn't know exactly what damage they're doing, which could cause significant damage to our organization. So that's the #1 thing we have to consider when we're defending against cybercrime. We are trying to defend our organizations against damage to life and property. And then, of course, the other 4 R's, which are very synonymous, are connected to IT, is reputational damage, where we can't see that we're letting organized crime in. Regulators, if we lose information such as GDPR, regulators will heavily fine our organizations. We have to look at running costs. If cyber aggressors get in and shut us down with a ransomware, if they put malware onto our systems that corrupt our data, if they have a man in the middle which change operating functions, we're going to have increased operating costs. And finally, revenue loss, damage that is caused both primary to our organizations because of machine damage or machine collapse, or because we can't generate revenue for our client, because we can't generate energy for our clients, we lose revenue. So the 4 below can actually affect financial institutions, but the one above is very much connected to our OT environment. But the 5 R's are critical. That's why we should defend against cyber crime. So let me just show you an example of this. I'm going to run a video, and this was a video. This was not the actual, but it was very, very similar. A German company got an order to make steel for a certain shipyard. The competitor who had lost the contract, funny enough, was a Eastern European competitor. And for the competitor to win, the German company would have to be able to default on the production of steel. So what the competitor did was went to organized crime using cybercrime and asked, could they attack the factory? And what they did was they got into their blast furnaces and to their transportation systems, and they recoded the control systems. From here, you can see that the blast furnace then started to leak out superheated metal across the factory and started to destroy the factory. Now, and you'll just see that in the last minute, you'll actually see probably the box that was attacked on this attack. But what I'm trying to say in this is that the cyber aggressors were quite happy to take the money from the competitors, but they did not care about life, or they did not care about property they might damage. So be very wary that cyber aggressors in organized crime are as vicious and as focused as you would get in any organized crime, be it narcotics, be it arms, be it human trafficking. So just be aware that that's one thing we have to defend ourselves, that they do not care the damage they cause, because they're motivated by something completely different. So if I look at the power generation system, of course, we have the primary systems, which is generation, which is transform, distribution, and supply. And in recent years, we start to look at national control systems. I've worked with our national control system here, ESB and ESB International, where they actually now have a smart grid, and they're constantly looking at demand, they're constantly looking at phase locks, they're constantly looking at frequency generation, and and also if plants go up or down, and can they control the load to the demand. And this is, somewhat of a closed system. But as we start to see additional systems like maintenance systems, scheduling systems, physical load balancing, and so on, we see that sometimes these are actually owned still by the engineering organizations. And maybe if I'm not successful by attacking your plant, or by attacking your distribution channels, or attacking your national control systems, maybe I can cause havoc by taking out your maintenance system, by messing with your load balancing system, by knocking out your safety systems, which mightn't have an immediate impact, but if they're sustained down, you could actually have a sustained impact. So you can see that, unfortunately, fortunately, the ENU, the energy and utility sector, has started to become a system of systems with heavily integrated and interreliant solutions, which is unfortunately real opportunities for cyber aggressors, because the type of attacks that we've seen in our banking institutions, in our telecoms institutions, are now been forced against our energy and utility locations, where you can see denial of service has been taken over, where control is denied. Man in the middle, where the National Control Center might be eavesdropped, and we now can take over control of this. Forcing passwords, insiders, ransomwares. These are all very, very common attack vectors that are used in our maybe our financial institutions, our telecommunications, our retail institutions, but are just been repurposed, redesigned, and put up against the ENU systems, because the motivation doesn't come because they're OT. It comes from, remember I said, espionage, monetization, revenge, or cyber warfare. So we have to think just like our brethren in IT. And in fact, what you will see with Ahmed or Rafael or Adam today is that there is a major conversion, both IT and OT, and they will go into the depths of how this happens. And they will explain how the physical layers can be integrated all the way up to the IT layers, and we can see this as a single solution and system, and we can then look for where our vulnerabilities may exist, both in our IT, OT, and of course our IoT. So the follow-on speakers today will get into much more depth of how these solutions work, what consultancy can be offered, what additional feature functions can help an ENU organization. But before that, give me around 2 more minutes of your time. For those of you who might be new to cyber is all about networks. It's all about information going from endpoints up to central control systems, be it if it's PLCs, if it's standalone computing systems, where they go through buses, which could be, again, Intibus, ASIBus, Profibus. Then they'll get converted from into a IP address, and then they'll move around networks. And what our job is to try to figure out, well, what inside the network is acceptable and what's abnormal. And that's what cybersecurity is, trying to find what's abnormal and what's normal, looking at the abnormal and stopping it. And what we have to do then is we have to start looking at how we can manage this. And let me just show you how it grows. So we start with our networks, and what you'll see then later on is we have to extract what we call the log management from our networks. So logs would be things like What is the router doing? What is the endpoint doing? Does it make sense? Who is logged on at what time? From these logs, we collect them and we bring them together. Then we process them. So we run rules engines, just like we would do in a microprocessor or an IoT. And once those rules finds an offense, we send them to what's called a security information event management system. Now you're getting into cyber protection. And from that cyber protection system, you will see inside the SOCs, we'll have dashboards, which will tell us, well, what's normal, what's abnormal. We'll have response management to tell us how we should run a solution. We'll have additional systems like open source intelligence, user behavior, artificial intelligence. Now, these are very, very mature systems. And it's usually, we start at this side of the spectrum and move across, that we need dashboards, then we need response management, and so on. But as the engineers in the audience would also know that, again, engineering is more systems of systems. And just like cyber defenses are, there are many other moving parts, which don't have to be built all at once. But when you're designing a system, you have to think, well, what exactly is my end goal? Because I will have to have encryption, endpoint protection, I will have to test it, I might have to store data. Of course, I'll need disaster recovery and HR. So the speakers that'll come after me will explain a little bit more of this, but it just gives you the opening up to say, well, 37 years ago, in 1984, we had simple key locks to lock out our keyboards. Today, we have to build systems that have some or all of these type of elements into it to keep ourselves safe, to protect against the 4 Rs. And what I'd like to say is that working with people like IBM and our great partners, we actually do have all these elements, both highly integrated or standalone. And we're very, very happy to talk more with you on that. And it's, again, IBM might be considered an IT organization, but we work with some great companies, which we'll explain in the next couple of slides, of who they are in the OT organization, where we can get into those OT devices, where we can then do something like consider that the environment is a multi-environment, both OT, IT, and IoT. We're able to bring this data up, and then using the great security capabilities that ourselves and our partners have, we can really then understand what's going on in the network, and then be able to find and stop attacks. So with that, I'm going to say thank you very much. I hope you got an understanding of the types of impacts, effects, and what we need to do in cyber. And now I'm going to hand it back to the team here, who's going to take you on a much deeper explanation of how we achieve this with IBM. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you very much, Mike, for this introduction, and I will shortly go to your next colleague in line for the presentation. Please allow me to note a few ideas that I kept after your presentation, and that would be, I think, three ideas. The first of one is that cyber attackers are part of a business. They are for the money, they are for the financial gains. Then a very scary idea is that cyber attackers have started to learn OT, which is, I understand, something rather new for the last years. And the last of the ideas that these cyber attackers get smarter and smarter, probably in line with the evolution of the technology and the introduction of a new smarter device in our industries, electricity or power and gas in this situation. Thank you very much, and we'll come back to you. There are two questions now, lunch for our from our friends, and addressed to you, Mike. So I have another announcement to make, and in fact it is about a question that we have prepared for you, our friends in the audience, and that is where are you and your organization in your journey to a smart grid? This is the question from our lectors today. Please reply using the session chat room in my connector. I saw some people from a big power generator, also some professionals from a big power distribution company. Please use the session chat room in my connector and give us your thoughts on this starting idea. Where are you and your organization in your journey to a smart grid? With this, I move to Mr. Ahmed El Nass, prepared today for the next presentation. Hi, Ahmed, and the floor is yours. Just one word about yourself and the 7 years of experience in this Security Operations Center and Managed Security Services area. Ahmed, please.
Thank you, Gabriel. My name is Ahmed El Nass, and I help organizations design, build, transform, and mature OT security operation centers, or IT/OT converged security operation centers across people, process, technology, governance, and matrix. I'm actually based in Dubai, and as you know, in the Middle East, we are targeted for attacks. So I was lucky enough to successfully build IT/OT converged SOCs for an oil and gas company. It was in the downstream, refinery-based, couple of large refineries and depots, gas stations, as well as I helped utility company in the transmission, power, and distribution to build a dedicated OT security operation center. And again, I helped companies into the mining and petrochemicals due to the attacks that happened like Shamoon that devastated their environment, and we helped them to build an IT/OT converged center. With that, I will start my session, and my focus is to take you through the journey of how we design, build, and mature and manage OT or IT/OT security operation centers. With that, at IBM, we have a global practice dedicated for OT security services, and this specific topic is around OT SOC. So we have 3 pillars to build the equation for us to help you ensure that there is minimal disruption or no disruption in safety of our lives. We start with the top left, the OT SOC consulting services. And this is where we do site surveys, design your architecture, we understand your zones and conduit, we build the use cases for detection capabilities and visibility, we help you populate your asset inventory, the vulnerability mapping, and detection accordingly. We build the process workflows, guided suggested response procedures, and we will talk about this in details. Now, the second point of the equation is we leverage IBM technologies, but also our global alliances with industrial intrusion detection vendors. These solutions understand the OT protocols of the industrial control system networks that we leverage it to give us visibility into the operations, and then we start monitoring of any abnormal behaviors. And the third part of the equation is the OT SOC managed services. So after we have done our consulting services, we tested and deployed the technology, we fine-tuned it, we set it up to be taken to our SOCs to manage it for you 24/7, if that's the requirement. My focus will be on the first 2 pillars. The third pillar will be my colleague Rafał, who will be walking you through in the third session. We at IBM have built an IBM IT/OT converged SOC blueprint. Why convergence? Because you will realize now with the Industrial 4.0 transformation, there is an important need that IT and OT to start collaboration. The business side are pushing very heavily to increase production, reduce the cost, reduce the carbon framework, start to predict their preventative maintenance so that they can optimize their operations. So we believe in the importance of convergence. But if you still believe you want to start the journey starting with OT SOC and then moving, we're happy to support you. This is a blueprint that you can see that starts from level 0 up to level 3.5, which is the DMZ, which is the intersection between your industrial control systems operations and your level 4, which is the enterprise. Now, we're not going to talk about the IT part. We're focusing on the OT for this session, but we're happy to take you through the journey of how we take it, the full picture. Now, you will see that from level 3.5 to level 1, there is a need now for some technologies that need to be plugged in. But to plug these technologies, it's not a plug and play. We really need to be planning very carefully the site surveys, the areas that we need to monitor, understanding your architecture, getting into the use cases to define the detection mechanisms, into the response procedures, doing the testing on a testing environment, then we plug it into the network. And you will see that some of these technologies in the OT are the industrial IDS, the OT threat feeds, the OT privilege access monitoring, vulnerability management passively, and deception technologies, and of course, the SIM collectors and the native OS audit logs, if possible. Now, let me move to the how we take you through the journey. We have a 5-phase delivery approach to take you to a full OT SOC managed services, be it with IBM or be it if you want to manage it yourself. The 5 phases start with the planning, system design, implementation, test and implementation, integration and transition, and finally the steady state operations. Now, I'm not going to touch on all of that, but I have highlighted areas that I really want to guide you through in the next slides. One is the site surveys, the use case workshops, and which areas that we need to monitor, the architecture, and then we will go into the escalation matrix and communication. Then we take it into our global security operations center. So let's get started. Now, on this slide, you will see a typical diagram of the Purdue model, reference architecture, and the network that is shown from level 4 up till down. Now, as you know, in level 3 and 3.5, which is DMZ, you actually have systems that are sitting on Windows, like engineering workstations, your HMI, your historians, your SCADA, your OPC servers, and AV, all are sitting on Windows. So they actually fall into the same set of attacks of the IT sectors once they compromise a system in that. Even if you go to the level 2, you still have the HMI. You have some engineering workstations. And if you really don't put the proper controls here, it becomes really difficult to manage. What we have noticed from our clients that we have worked with is that there was a lack of asset inventory. It's very difficult. Some of these networks have been built for the last 15, 20, even 30 years. They don't have an updated asset inventory. Even system architecture drawing, when we worked with our clients, it was maybe 60% up to date, not more than that. So actually we had to plug in site surveys. So we had to do workshops with the client and with the industrial automation control vendors. We had to understand first architecture, whatever was present state. Then we had to do site surveys to really understand, is the system architecture diagram same as the reality on the field or not? Because we need to understand your architecture, which areas that we need to monitor, which again, it's based upon your risk to your organization. So let me take you through a couple of examples of the challenges or concerns that were raised by our clients and how did we address them. Number 1, interruption of the production by installing agents into my system. So we get this many often that not only our oil and gas companies or utilities or petrochemicals, but also the industrial automation vendors, they will not allow you to really install any agent on the systems. They are afraid that could cause a performance issues to the operation, and they're not going to take that risk. So we work globally with industrial alliances in the industrial intrusion detection systems, which are these blue boxes. They do not require an agent to be installed in your OT environment. Nothing is inline, it is passive. And basically it takes a copy of your OT switches that are sitting at level 2, level 3, and 3.5. Of course, depending on your architecture, some clients we have found that they have no segmentation. So we have found that level 3 downwards is a flat. So we had to just monitor what is happening on the 3 because we will have visibility across. But some have proper segmentation, and you can see they have segmentation at level 2 as well below. So we had to monitor also these systems. Now, we leverage industrial IDS because they understand the OT protocols like Modbus, Profibus, Profinet, ICCP, DMP3, and the list goes on. But again, it's not about the plug and play. After a few slides, I'll be walking you through the use cases. Let's go to the next concern that clients have shared. This was a client as well as the industrial automation control vendor where we were doing the delivery had concerns. Number one, taking logs over the OT network, we are afraid it causes disruption. Although the industrial IDS just sends the metadata and it's very minimal, but some still environments, they are cautious. I don't want to pass anything. And this was an objection from one of the automation vendors. And what we did is we created an out-of-band network. The client had the infrastructure ready with the fiber optics at the back end. And we were able to span the OT switches out of band of the OT traffic while still maintaining the Purdue level model and be able to pass the traffic to 3.5 accordingly out of band. So we solved this first concern. Now, the second concern is that one of the automation vendors told me, Ahmed, I do apologize, but I'm not going to allow you to install any device in my OT racks. They are locked. I don't want to be in any possible problem that could happen. So luckily, as you know, the level 3.5, usually the DMZ, is where you will find your telecom and IT systems as well. So they had their in this level 3.5, they had their IT racks. And this is where we plugged in the technologies, security controls in the IT rack sitting at level 3.5. Now, although you see the industrial IDS at level 2 and 3, but they are physically sitting at level 3.5, where we just have the cabling that gets us the OT traffic from the spanned OT switches up to level 3.5. And then from there, we have a central management console that feeds to our SIM solution, which is our QRadar. And then if it's an IT-OT converged SOC, then we pass it to the master console at level 4 accordingly, so that we have a full visibility into the IT and OT converged. Okay, let's move to the next. So we get a lot of questions. So how many devices do I need to monitor? And in that case of the client, he really wanted to monitor everything from level 3.5 up to level 1. And this client had 3 large refineries, and each refinery has more than 50 control areas. And each control area had many OT switches. So you can imagine the amount of devices that we need to put. So we had to think of another strategy. So what we did is we collected those OT switches by an aggregation switch that we have introduced, which is out of band. And then this aggregation switch, we have connected it to our industrial IDS. By that, of course, we have tested it in a test environment, but then we have plugged it when it was safe, and then we connected to the industrial IDS. And that saved us a lot of devices that we need to monitor. But the question is, how many devices do I need? And usually the answer to this is based on risk assessment. We encourage every entity, if they have not established a cybersecurity management system for OT or did a risk assessment, to really start by this. Because this will allow you to understand what is the risk exposure, what's the consequences of the likelihood of a threat to materialize. And then we can start prioritizing over a roadmap of the areas that you need to start. Do I need to start with all of my refineries or all of my substations? No, you can start with a pilot of maybe one refinery or maybe a couple of substations. So in one of the utilities, we started with a 5 substation and 2 control areas, and then we spanned into the 250 substations. And in the refinery area, this was an RFP, so the client actually wanted to monitor everything, so we had to do it all. But if you were asked me to how to start the journey, is you need to start small, define the zone of criticality that you want to do based on your risk assessment approach, and you start monitoring it. Next slide. This is very important. The OT use cases areas to monitor. This is where we bring our OT consultants, subject matter experts, that we really help you design the right use cases for your environment accordingly. There are 3 areas that we need to monitor, and I will start with the lower layer. The anomaly behaviors around changes in variables or set points, as well as the OT protocols misuse from spoofing, injection, man-in-the-middle attacks, or the denial of service. And this is where the industrial IDS comes in hand. But really, this industrial IDS to come very effective is we plug it it starts monitoring your environment and just build a profile for it. Then we sit with you to really tell you, is this normal for your network or not? Is this normal for your network or not? And then we start building queries to search for things that should not happen. If someone's doing a PLC stop, then we should be alerted immediately. And you can see here some of the examples from OPC or Modbus or other protocols. Like, for example, in the utilities, in the substations, you typically want to monitor the IEC 104 messages or the Goose messages. In the oil and gas, you probably need to monitor all the protocols like Modbus or TCP packets that are of wrong size, or function codes that force a slave devices into listen-only mode, or traffic on TCP port 502 that is not Modbus, and the list goes on. So we help you to define these use cases, which is based on MITRE ATT&CK for ICS or the NIST cybersecurity framework. And we start injecting it to these technologies to monitor exactly, to detect as fast as possible, because we want to make sure that you do not have any disruption. Now, the second layer is the engineering workstations or servers that could be hijacked or infected as an entry point to the industrial control operations. And this is very important. This is, I mentioned in my earlier discussions, that some of the clients will not allow you to install an agent. Even they will not allow you to enable audit logs. Although if you look at the standards, they are asking that we should have audit logs to really continuously monitor it. But usually clients are afraid. So I will talk to you in the next slide, how did we partner with one of the industrial automation vendors and we helped address this. But things like controller application download outside regular work hours, the activation of your audit trails, process start or stop, variable changes. And then the last area on the top is your IT to OT attacks, your remote access. Now we are all, during this pandemic, having a lot of work that is remote. Are we monitoring that or not? We probably have seen environments enabling protocols that are now seen on the internet. So use Shodan or other devices to see what is connected onto the internet to really be able to block it and not allow it. Remote technician, guest network, your supply chain. And these all are the areas that we really need to help you. And this is where we come with our consulting services team to help you in this area. Now, I mentioned on the audit logs. So what we have been doing is we have been collaborating with the industrial automation vendors, and one of them is ABB. You probably have seen it in the news where we have announced our joint collaboration that we now can use our QRadar, our SIM technology, security incident and event management solution to really take logs from the controllers like ABB DCS 800XA and other systems logs where they have created we have been working with them for the last 2 years, where they have created their native agent that sits on their controllers and other systems, and they created a traffic aggregator, and then they forwarded to our SIM solution where we have parsed it and we have built jointly the use cases that you can see on the right side. And just to give you a snapshot, on the top right, you will see that we have been trying to use the controller download outside of working hours, and once we click continue, it will start downloading the controller application. And you can see in our QRadar SIM solution that we already immediately got an alert that the controller application download outside regular hours. So now we leverage our partnership with ABB. We leverage industrial intrusion detection and our SIM solution on top to gather all of these data and start making sense of them and alert you immediately to take the right remediation actions. We finished with the site surveys, architecture use cases, and also response procedures. As you know, in OT, we cannot do a response. I cannot tell you block this. This cannot happen in OT environment. I can get you some suggestions. And these suggestions will happen through workshops with your OT engineers to really define together, if I see certain behavior, I will tell you a set of steps and you can tell me work together to really find the balance that you need to investigate and close accordingly. And this is where we come and help you with the response procedures. Now, with that, I have touched bases on the site surveys, the use cases, architecture, some of the runbooks. But then you will see that we have, after we have implemented fine-tuned, we need now to prepare the environment to be ready for the next phase, which is the operations. So we define the escalation matrix, who will be the escalation points, how to act on it, what will be the technology integrations, the runbooks that we need to follow, the VPN tunnel that we establish with our global SOC so that we can start managing, which is the next topic that my colleague Rafał will be talking about. Now, before I leave you, this is how the IT-OT converged overall architecture would look like. On the lower level, if you decided to go for the IT-OT conversions or not, we are happy to have it as a one-to-one discussions, case by case, and walk you through the details, be it in energy utilities, be it petrochemicals, mining, as you wish. But just to sum it up, on the lower level, you will see your OT switches span to an industrial IDS that feeds into a collector that is QRadar, where it collects other audit logs from your industrial control environment at level 3.5. And then through strict VLAN, we pass it into our SIM solution, which is sitting at level 4. And then we have our established IPsec VPN tunnel, site-to-site tunnel to our global security operation centers that we can manage for you 24/7. With that, I thank you for your time, and I will pass it to Gabriel and Rafał for the next session to walk you in details about our managed services capabilities.
Thank you very much, Ahmed, for your presentation and for starting this very thorough presentation of the services that IBM and your teams can provide. I have a few questions that will drive you to more specific experiences in the region of Central and Eastern Europe. But for the moment, I will just pass the microphone to your colleague, to Rafał Czerniewicz. Sorry, Rafał, the floor is yours. We are listening to you.
Yeah, thank you, Gabriel. Thank you, Ahmed and Mike, for presenting. Let me share quickly my screen. Okay, welcome everybody. Good morning. I trust that you are having good time and you are able to learn really good things about what we can do and what we do for our clients in OT space and IoT as well. So my name is Rafał Czerniewicz. I'm with IBM for nearly 9 years. So I started as SIM analyst, then I became SOC manager for a couple of years. And now I'm working closely with our clients on their security journey. So the overall experience is allowing me to prepare better solutions for them, which are really aligned with their requirements and their needs. So today I'm going to talk about the service that we prepared and then the service that we created. So I'm going to introduce you to X-Force Threat Management Program, shortly XFTM. And I'm going to talk about the architecture as well as the team that is using this architecture on daily basis. And you are going to understand how they are operating on daily basis, how they are providing the service to our clients. There will be also a time when I will show you a quick use case example where you can see how the team is actually operating and what we do for our clients. Now, before going deeply into that, I would like to start for a minute and introduce you to the program, which we call, again, X-Force Threat Management Program, and why we are doing this. So we as IBM provides security services for over 20 years. That's a huge amount of time. That also means many different clients, many different requirements, many different demands from our clients. And what we were hearing from our clients is that they want to have increased visibility, right? So we used to provide our services, and in fact, this is quite often what is happening with other security providers, security services providers, is that they are going to treat this as a black box solutions. So simply saying, we are taking what client is giving us in the form of logs, security events, we do something, and then at the end, you as a client, you are going to get security notification. But that's not exactly what our customers were asking for. They wanted to understand what exactly we do, what is happening behind the scene. So we changed that. We introduced Resilience, which is a security incident orchestration tool. And we are going to give you the access to the tool. So you will see exactly what our team is doing there, right? So what are the steps they are performing? What are the artifacts captured so far? What are the steps performed, and all of the things that are happening there, right? So we are open, and now you are able to see and also interact with SOC, with security team. What client also wanted to get is much faster notification and investigations, right? So in other words, they want to be notified about potential security incidents as soon as possible, right? So we also invested in machine learning, in automation, and also invested again in resilience, which is now allowing to achieve this goal. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit more in a few minutes. Then also client wanted to have the same approach to security incidents, the same the same framework when it comes to investigations, same process and consistency. So that's also something that that we managed to improve. And with help of, again, with resilience, that's now possible. And now we have well-structured approach to the investigation. And I'm going to talk about this later on as well. So our clients wanted to have improved quality of the investigation. So something that initially started as managed SIEM service with L1 for initial triage, now clients wants to have more advanced investigations. They want to be notified about cases which are full with details and which are coming with recommendations, summaries, so they can simply take this information and continue the investigation while still working with us. Then our clients just didn't want to have security vendor that is providing a service and that's it, right? Because that was the case in the past. Many vendors are still doing this. So they do provide the service, but there's no really cooperation. And we wanted to improve this as well. And in fact, we did that because of introducing security consultancy. So our teams are working closely with you on daily basis, weekly basis. They are having tuning calls where our engineers, where your engineers are discussing ways to improve the service. We also have security consultant that is working closely with you and also having strategic discussions about, maybe your plans are changing, and we need to make sure that the service is aligned with the new strategy. So this is what we do. So that's why it's no longer just service that is being delivered and that's it. We want to create really good partnership, and we want to build virtual team together, because that's all about that is what is all about security and how to improve security posture. And our clients also wanted to have improved governance, right? So they want to see how the SOC is performing, what the SOC is able to discover, how we are handling the incidents, and what are the details, right? So we also improved this area as well. So overall, something that initially started at managed SIEM turned into full program. So XFTM shortly, the Export Threat Management Program, shortly XFTM, is NIST cybersecurity framework aligned program. So if you're familiar with NIST already, you can already recognize 5 main domains. And again, it's not about the single product. It's about what we can do with many different products and many different technologies. So again, it's a vendor agnostic program that is allowing us to provide security services and overall improve clients' security posture. Now, what it means. XFTM initially has been built for IT. However, we quickly found out that it can be easily aligned with OT as well, because again, we are talking about the framework. We are not talking about specific technology. But of course, OT is different than IT. And Ahmed and Mike already introduced you to what we do and how it differs and what are the challenges in OT, IoT environment. So we also aligned XFTM with those specific requirements and unique unique environments, which is OT and IoT. And so now you can see a few details of what are the difference between IT and OT. Now, something that you have seen already, so I'm not planning to go deeply into that. Ahmed already explained how we are able to increase visibility of OT. Here, I just wanted to mention how we fit into overall Purdue model. So we do have a partnership in place with ABB that is allowing us to have more deep visibility into lower level of Purdue model. But we also partner with other vendors who are specializing in OT security, OT monitoring, like Nozomi, CyberX, Radiflow, and many, many more. Now, what it means at the end. So we do collect security events through OT IDS, which is, again, working in a passive mode. We can collect directly from ABB equipment like DCS systems 800XA as an example as well. But what it means now, we have huge amount of logs, we have huge amount of events that we need to analyze, and doing this manually would be very difficult. That's why we are using for this security, we are using SIEM technology, which is security events, information and event management systems, and where this solution is allowing to correlate and integrate many different log sources together and build use cases specifically to discover threats for OT environments, IT of course as well. Now, but that's only beginning of the journey. So Ahmed already explained how we build use cases, how we are working with our clients, how we are trying to understand what are their goals, their requirements. Maybe there are some regulations they need to stick to. So all of that goes into SIEM, which is working as a, which is allowing to detect potential security threats. Now, like I said, that's just beginning of the journey. Now, we take what's available in SIEM and then we synchronize with our X-Force protection platform, which is internal system that we specifically developed for security monitoring. So on the left-hand side, you have your devices, you have your environment. On the right-hand side, you have something that we have built. So what you can see here, we got client-facing portals, and this is where you can see security incidents. We also have specifically designed health checks to monitor overall health of monitoring devices. We have built-in ticketing systems, as well as artificial intelligence and machine learning, which is allowing our team to first be accurate when it comes to investigations, be fast when it comes to response, and also you will get visibility on what is happening in our systems through resilience, something that I already mentioned. And I will go a little bit more into details in a second, but just to give you an overview that we invested a lot of money into the entire platform, so our team can focus on security alerts that are much, or they can focus on incidents that are much more important from security perspective, right? So we have false positive reduction tools, we have many AI and machine learning capabilities there. So when it comes to team, on daily basis, they use many tools. It will be very difficult to provide the service manually, right? So that's why they are using many tools, and some of those tools are publicly available. Like an example, X-Exchange, which is a platform for collaboration and overall intelligence platform. So we are integrated with that platform, so we have threat intelligence feeds into X-Force protection platform, into our internal platform, and our team is leveraging this integration. They are also using common tools for that, like IP Void in example, while they are doing the investigation. They also use tools that are commercially available, like Use Cases Library, Resilient, or Watson for Cybersecurity, which is another AI built into SIEM. So that is greatly enhancing teams' capabilities there. It's like Watson is allowing to discover things that are initially not yet recognized or not yet captured in a use case. So just to give you an example, one of the cases where our team was analyzing security incidents, one of the analysts has found that although they were dealing with the malware infection, Watson has found another links which led to discovery of tens of different machines infected by the same malware that were not part of the initial incidents. So that is great. That is something that is greatly increasing the visibility and enhancing their capabilities. And our team also using specifically designed and developed tools, like in example, false positive reduction tools. And you will hear a little bit more about this in a second. So the entire purpose of building these tools for our team is to give them, is to allow them to focus on security investigation. And it's quite often the case where analysts are wasting their time trying to collect the data, trying to understand what is happening, and they need to spend a lot of time on this just to collect the data, and then at the end, the entire investigation, yes, will be fast, but they will waste a lot of time. So that's why we invested a lot of money into this. So our analysts are now have all of the right tools in place. They don't need to search for the data because our systems are doing this for them. And what it means for you is that at the end, you as a client, you are going to get, you are going to be alerted on the cases that are much more important. So that's the true benefit coming from the team using these systems, is because you will not be flooded by false positive alerts. You will be notified about security incidents, and you will be working with us. You will leverage or you will consume those tools through the service. Now, when it comes to the team, we also built we have many different teams working as part of the solution. So we have a team that is specializing in the deployment. Their job is to make sure that we quickly onboard new clients so we can start monitor your environment as soon as possible. So Ahmed and his team are building use cases, making sure that the systems are functioning properly, and more importantly, the system are discovering what it needs to discover, right? So they are going to build use cases, they are going to implement those use cases, and they will be working closely with you to do that. Now, when the system is ready, when the SIEM is ready, and we have all the right alerts in place, and we have use cases already functioning properly, there will be handover milestone where our team will take over the steady state. So they will provide 24/7 monitoring. They will also work closely with you on weekly basis, and our security correlation engineer will work on weekly basis, will meet with you on weekly basis, will recommend tuning, will produce reports, and implement new use cases to cover new threats. That also means that our security consultants during the steady state will also be working closely with you to understand what are the new areas that we need to cover, what is changing, what are the new threats that we need to cover, and things like that. Now, when it comes to team, what it makes to create a team, right? Because OT is very unique, right? You need to have unique knowledge there. But also OT environment comes with IT elements. So IT components. So what do? We design a program for our analysts, not only analysts, but for the entire team, which consists IT specific vendor trainings, IT security trainings, like a generic one, and also, as you can see, some offensive techniques as well. But also on the top of that, we have specifically designed a program for teams that are going to monitor OT and IoT environment, right? So we invested heavily in the education and the program for our teams as well. Now, I'm going to give you a use case example and what is going to happen on our side and what is that SOC is going to do. So here we have one of the examples where we have compromised HMI. And HMI, access to HMI means access to the process, right? So whoever is getting the access to HMI can control the process. And that's really something that we want to protect, right? So in this particular example, we have several use cases implemented to discover this kind of threats, right? So in this example, we have logs coming from Nozomi, which is again OT IDS, that is listening in passive mode and is able to recognize OT specific traffic. So now we have incidents, security alerts coming from Nozomi. We have also alerts coming from UBA, which is user behavior analytics, which is embedded into SIEM. And as you can see in this particular example, it has been discovered that like normally only local team is logging to HMI, and now we have somebody remotely doing this. So that itself is suspicious. So then we have other events coming from different sources, not only from IT, it could be coming from OT, it could be coming from firewalls that are protecting OT or many different log sources as well. So that overalls, different logs coming from different log sources, different events visible on SIEM platform, that overalls after correlation triggers an alert which on SIEM such as QRadar we call an offense. So that's a starting point for our team when it comes to the investigation. Now, what they are going to do, they are going to see the offense, which is going to be synchronized with our X-Force protection platform. So we have, like I mentioned, we have specifically designed and developed systems that are able to parse those events coming from SIEM. Then we have false positive reduction tool. So basically, we have 3 independent machine learning techniques or our systems that are assessing each and every offense, and they provide a scoring. So if there is a match across all of them, so the system is able to action the case automatically. So in other words, if the system has seen in the past, let's say for last 12 months, if the system was able to see the same alerts, the system will be able to action those alerts automatically. So that could be security incident notification or false positive. And if the system is confident in 95%, so notice that that's quite high level, then it will be auto dispositioned. If that's not the case, then it will be sent to analysts who are going to conduct initial triage. So they are going to get all the details about the incident. They are going to get back to QRadar if that's necessary. They are going to check historical data. They are going to see if perhaps it has been already reported to you, and they can see what was the response and what was the feedback. Because again, I would like to remind that it's what our aim is to build a virtual team. So we want to have this cooperation, right? We want to work with you closely. It's not just us reporting to you. So they will be checking this if there are some security incidents already created. So they will have this information in one place. They will not have to look manually for this. So if they will come to the conclusion that, yes, this is potential security incident, they will go ahead and send you a notification and also make a phone call in case of priority 1 type of incidents. So from now on, you will be constantly informed about the progress. So then this will allow to create a case in Resilient, which is again, security incident orchestration tool. And Resilient is basically a set of instructions for analysts to follow, right? So those instructions, we call it playbooks. Those playbooks are dynamically generated based on the case that the team is working on. And then you will be able to see all the steps that are completed by the team. You will be able to see what are the artifacts captured, and you will be also able to interact with the team. And at the end, we will be working together to see what else we can do better, how we can improve this, what else can be done, or what we need to adjust on our ends to make this response faster or more detailed, etc. So there will be post-incident activities and analysis. Now at the end, of course, they will notify, they will provide more details about the incident and investigation. They will tell you about the progress, but also you will be able to get such notification through IBM security app. So sorry to say that, but you will be waken up in the middle of the night and informed by the team that there is security incident in progress. So that's 24/7 service that we provide as part of the solution. So again, that's machine learning capabilities, artificial intelligence, and also automation plus human elements that are here for you to first monitor 24/7 your environment, inform you about security incidents, as well as work with you on any potential improvements and new use cases implementation to cover more threats, to cover more areas according to your requirements and your strategy and needs. Now, overall, that's XFTM program. So that comes as a platform, as security teams that are closely working with you, and also that's vendor agnostic solution. Now, last few words. What I want you to remember is that, first of all, it is very difficult to do it alone. Of course, it's not impossible, but you need to think about many different things if you want to improve your security posture within OT space, not only OT, IT and IoT and many others as well. So you need to have everything in mind. That's why it is very helpful to partner with somebody who already understands what it means and have well-designed processes and procedures and also framework to do that. What I also want you to remember is that it requires a lot of investment, and not only technology, people as well. So you need to make sure that the team is well educated, they do understand both aspects of IT security, OT security, and OT specific elements, right? So you need to make sure that I need to make sure that you are aware of the investment that is required, and that is huge. It's not only about investing into people, it's not only about investing into education, but it's also about how you are going to keep those individuals with you, how you are going to make sure that those people are going to stay with you. So if you are going to give them education, you need to make sure that they are not going to go away with that knowledge. And then, as a last thing, something that you have heard multiple times today is that it is closer than you think, right? It has happened a few days ago, and it's still happening. Not everything is reaching the news, but for sure, it is going to happen. It's not the matter if, it's the matter when. Okay, that would be it for me. Thank you very much for your time today and the opportunity to present to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rafał Czerniewicz, for your presentation. And if I may, I would add a personal observation. When you're talking about the artificial intelligence systems that are involved in the incident analysis flow, I couldn't stop by thinking how similar is this description, this type of action, with what we have learned in recent months for about the anti-COVID-19 virus is working. In fact, teaching the immune system of ourselves how to behave in the moment when a similar kind of attack or threat is learning. We are becoming more and more educated each day, and this time in parallel with IT and biology in our heads. Thank you very much, Rafał, for your comments. I will move now to the last speakers of today. Before we are moving to Q&A session, I remind you, ladies and gentlemen, use the Q&A box in my connector and send us your question and or comments for our lectures. I selected a few and I sent them already. So in a 15-20 minutes, we'll have the Q&A session. Now the time is for the last speaker of today, Mr. Adam Laurie, to have the floor. Please, Mr. Laurie, we are listening to you.
Thank you, Gabriel, and thanks to my colleagues. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so quick introduction. My name is Adam Laurie. I'm a Global Security Associate Partner with IBM X-Force Red, and we're the team that do actual physical testing. I've been in the IT security world for over 30 years now, and specifically in hardware and embedded systems for getting on for 20 of those. And my experience in this field particularly is very much in the energy sector. I worked a lot on the UK rollout of smart meters, and I still do a lot of smart meter testing, you know, on the complete AMI as well as individual components. Now, my agenda, so speaking last is both a blessing and a curse, because a lot of what I was going to talk about has been covered in great detail by my colleagues, and you have had a good insight into our threat management tools, into our incident response and secure by design for your whole infrastructure and so on. So I do want us to get to the question and answer session. I know we're running quite short on time, so that means I can be relatively brief, and I'm just going to talk about specifically what my team does and focus on. I've got 3 examples of actual engagements that we did. So I'm going to talk about, you know, how we actually tackle these tasks and what we do. So a little bit about X-Force Red itself. So we are an autonomous team of hackers, and I do say hackers because that's what we are. We're not IT security guys that have been taught how to hack into things. We are people who've been hacking all our professional lives, or all our lives even before we became professionals, but for the right reason. So we're the good hackers. Okay, so when people ask me what I do, I say I'm not a criminal, I'm just misunderstood. Okay, and that's true. That's for all of us. We all come from a background of being curious about technology and the security of technology. So we have been poking around with it and trying to figure out how it works and how to make it do what it's not supposed to do. But the difference is we are coming from the right, you know, moral. We have a moral compass. So the difference between a criminal hacker and our hackers is we have a moral compass. We're not doing it for criminal gain or to cause trouble. We're doing it to improve security. So the entire team have been recruited from that kind of background. Everyone is handpicked. Everyone has been invited to join the team because they have a history of this kind of understanding of systems and behavior. We speak a lot at security conferences, so you will have heard of a lot of the mainstream IT security conferences like Black Hat and DEF CON, and a lot of our testers are regular speakers at those conferences. I myself am what's called a goon at DEF CON, so we're the staff that actually run the conference. I'm a manager of a team, so I have a complete team of about 30 people that work for me at DEF CON every year. Well, not anymore because we can't actually meet anymore, but when we do the virtual events, I'm still involved. So yeah, that's a bit of background on my team. And we basically deal with where the rubber hits the road. So we do the actual testing. So if you want to not just improve your processes and systems, we will take your physical devices, your physical networks, and test if they do actually perform as expected or if there are hidden security issues. So the way we do this, we have our own methodologies which we put together, and we have obviously qualifications. So we have a lot of certified team members. So whether it's OSCP, OSCE, CISSP, and so on, we have the qualifications, but we also think about this from a specific testing standpoint. How do we put the tools together? Do the right tools exist? So a lot of what we speak about at conferences, for example, is development of tools. So when a specific tool doesn't exist for doing the low-level testing of an actual device, we will roll our sleeves up and write code or design electronics. Just to my left here, there's a large electronics laboratory where I'm working, and I can, I have oscilloscopes and logic analyzers and FPGAs and all that kind of stuff that I can use to build the tools that we need to do the design. And again, my colleagues have talked a lot about understanding the architecture and the specific challenges in this industry. And again, my team are very concerned with that we properly understand and make the right decisions when we're doing the testing to not badly affect the systems that we're looking at, and to architect a sensible test program. So again, my colleagues have talked in detail about this, so I'm going to kind of quickly skip over this, but we are aware of the drivers for IT security. So a lot of it now is obviously compliance driven. If you don't secure your clients and your users, you're going to get fined probably. You may even get, in some industries, you can actually get banned from, for example, in automotive, there's new rules coming in that will ban you from actually selling your vehicles if you don't have a proper cybersecurity program. Human error, so human, and I'll talk about that a lot in a lot more detail in a minute, but human error and human hacking is becoming really relevant now, because as the tools and techniques become better for securing your systems against a technological attack, the human becomes the weakest link. So that's something that we have a specific team that focus on human hacking. And again, I will talk about that in a bit more detail. Obviously, the skills gap as things become more technical, having the right understanding to cross domains within these complex environments is very important. Constant innovation in the environment, trying to keep up with, excuse me, trying to keep up with technology, and the really advanced attacks, things that we wouldn't have dreamed of 10 years ago. It's not just the attack methodologies, but the tools that are being used, the our adversaries now have access, even the non-state actors. Technology is becoming so good that our adversaries now have access to technologies they could only have dreamed about 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So things like software-defined radios that can be programmed to attack proprietary RF protocols, FPGAs that can do very fast decision-making on at the electronics level to perform things like glitching attacks to bypass security of embedded devices and so on. So the threat landscape is becoming extremely sophisticated. So the particular challenges within this industry, obviously, again, my colleagues have talked about this, but you've got these complex interactions between integrated technologies. We don't know until we go into an environment what the attack surface is going to be. Every system that we look at is unique. You've got unique challenges with the way things have been interconnected with the historic legacy systems, with new systems, and so on. Even the clients that we talk to, again, been already touched on, but they themselves don't know what they've got. So we first have to do an inventory and figure out what we're looking at, and what's the most important thing to protect. And we've heard this from real life stories where systems have been attacked, that even during a live attack, it wasn't clear which things to protect first, because they're just, the consequences of one system going down could have a massive knock-on effect, or could be insignificant to the overall requirement to slow down or stop the attack. One of the biggest challenges we have is this one, the fragile and critical systems. So just the process of actually testing can cause a system to go down. So this is something we have to be very, very cautious about when we're designing our tests, that we don't inadvertently knock a system out. So unlike information gathering and intrusion detection systems, where you can be passive and just, or you have to be passive in order not to disrupt the system, but you can still understand how the system's working and how it's behaving. With an actual test, you have to try out some attacks. So again, this is a big challenge, and usually the way we achieve this is by testing test systems, or testing stuff offline, or creating, we even go to the extreme of building an entire duplicate system in order to be able to thoroughly test end to end. So that's a real challenge. So the specific services we provide, we have application testing. So that's everything from PC-based or mainframes right down to mobile phone apps and so on. Networks, internal, external, wireless, non-standard networks. So RF-based systems, or protocols that you wouldn't consider a network protocol, but are actually network, like SCADA or CAN bus, or any of these sort of back-end buses. I briefly mentioned human, and again, one of our case studies will talk about that. But the human element, physical, can I physically intrude into your networks? Can I, walk into your building, plug something in, walk into your data center, remove a server or a component and analyze it offline? Can I social engineer your people through phishing or some other method? And then my speciality, what I do within the team, is I run the hardware and embedded device hacking team. So I have labs all over the world where we take these physical devices and we break into them. So you literally take a screwdriver, or in the case of one machine I'm working on at the moment, it's actually being secured in a solid billet of aluminium, which has then been potted. And so to get to the circuitry, I'm having to hack it with a milling machine, and actually cut a hole into the box so I can get to the specific circuit that I want to interfere with, which we find, we'll find the actual position of components through X-rays or CAT scans or whatever we need to do to figure out where that chip is and how to get to it. So specific methodology. So what we'll do is we divide it up into these phases. So the initial phase, we will actually sit down with the client. We talk about your business requirements and functional requirements. Again, being careful to make sure that we understand what the risks to your infrastructure is and what you're trying to achieve through the testing. So what are the limitations? Which components are we looking at? Which ones are we not looking at? And from that, we will create a list of targets and potential attack scenarios. So we then hand those to the actual testers, and they will go off and either simulate the attack or do static code analysis to see if it would work. So those are kind of passive tests that we use against critical systems that we can't interfere with live. And active testing. So we'll actually take a physical device into the lab and we'll probe it, we'll talk to it, we'll try and abuse its protocols and so on. What that produces is a list of vulnerabilities. And then we'll go through those results with the client and do two things. Figure out, are the vulnerabilities real? Can they be chained into what we call a kill chain? So this is, can you take a number of these vulnerabilities, put them together into a real and valid attack scenario, which could then be used to take down your A system or your whole plant or whatever. And then we will work with you on remediation and possible, processes for sorting out the valid attacks that we found. And we'll retest if necessary. So we go right back to the beginning. If you come back with a remediated solution, we will test if that's a valid remediation. Okay, so again, I'm trying to get through these quickly so we can get to Q&As. I will just go over 3 examples of actual tests that we did. So this is in the smart metering industry. So you have a device that's going to be rolled out to millions of customers, is going to sit on the wall for 10, 20 years and is basically going to be feeding data back to the grid. There's many risks with this, of course, because in order to feed that data back, it's probably creating a VPN. And once you're on that VPN, you potentially directly connected to the back end of the utility company. So it will be talking to what they call a head end, but that head end itself will be connected to the management network and possibly all the other meters. So in this case, we took this device, we physically dismantled it. We figured out some vulnerabilities that existed on the device. And one of the things you have to be aware when you do physical embedded systems testing, one of the objections we often hear is, well, how many of my millions of customers are actually going to take a screwdriver to this device and pull it apart? And why should I care about that tiny, tiny percentage? If 1 in a million gets hacked into and they steal all the electricity for free, I really don't care. It's not worth my time and money to remediate that. But what we found in this case is that using that approach, being that tiny percentage and breaking into the device, we were able to discover secrets that were applicable not just to that one device, but gave us full access to the back-end systems, but also could be easily replicated by other users. So all we would have to do is publish that information. If we were a hacktivist or some kind of bad actor, we could publish that information on the internet and cause you an enormous problem. So in that case, obviously, the client was very happy that we had found the problem before the system was deployed. Similarly, another industrial control system at an airport, in this case, it was their baggage handling system. And you probably will have noticed as you walk around airports looking for the free Wi-Fi, you'll see all these strange device names of access points that are available. And a lot of those will be the control systems, because a lot of this stuff has been retrofitted to existing buildings. So, you know, they're putting these control systems in, and very often the quick and easy way to get network connectivity was just to use wireless. And so they use, you know, secure Wi-Fi to connect these systems together. And in this case, we found by hacking the Wi-Fi, breaking into one of these access points, we were actually get full control. We were able to get full control of the Active Directory. Once we had that, we didn't just have the baggage handling system. We had other systems too, like the passenger screening and X-ray, luggage X-ray systems. So we did find it would have been possible to just delete events and switch off a system as a particular bag goes through and allow it to not be screened. So again, you know, this prevented potentially very large problems. And finally, this is an industrial system using a SCADA network. And what we found here was that technically it was fantastic. They had applied, you know, they obviously had a very mature security system. They had applied over many years remediations to all the simple low-hanging fruit attacks and even the more sophisticated ones. So in the end, we decided to go in through the front door and use a human attack. And even there, they had a very sophisticated email filtering system that was plugged into live monitoring of known email phishing attacks. So any tool or technique that was in common use was very quickly stopped. And so it wasn't possible to get our phishing attack into their back-end human network. So we ended up having to design and build an entirely new and unique attack. And this was a bit of a double-edged sword, because although it was harder for us to do it, when we did it and deployed it, because the staff felt so secure that their systems were immune to phishing attacks, it meant a very large percentage of the users who we sent that mail to actually clicked on and followed through with that attack. So it was very important that they, you know, one of the lessons that we learned in this case, or that the client learned, was they can't just rely on technology. They had to continue to do training internally to let their staff understand that, you know, that technology is not infallible. They still have to be alert to these threats, and they still have to worry about it. So those are my 3 examples, and that concludes the entertainment from my side. Thank you for the invitation, and it's been a pleasure talking to you, and hopefully we have some questions.
Thank you, Adam. And you're joking, but it was quite entertaining, this presentation. And if I may, I thank you now, all of you, for being with us and sharing these thoughts. If I try to make a short, very condensed sum up of the ideas, the first presentation coming from Mike Kehoe was mainly addressed to the professionals in this cybersecurity business, but having in mind the CEO, the person that should approve a specific investment in this area. And then we had the next 2 presentations from Ahmed El Nass and Rafał Czerniewicz, which were was very technical and hands-on on their presentation, ending with this let's say sexy approach from an ethical hacker perspective, and very, very interesting all of the presentation. Thank you. We will still have around 20 minutes for a conversation, and I will also expect Mike to join us in video for this final part of the conversation. There are a few questions that I had already sent you through the chat box in Zoom, and I suppose that first of them is probably addressed to Mike. It was one of the first that came to me, and now the second one was addressed to Mike, evidently. But I will just close my camera. I will just be present with you as a voice, and I will let you all four visible for our friends, and I will address the questions. Please answer as you please. Any of you who finds that the question is for him. So please.
I'll grab the easy one up top then. I'll let the
easy one, the first one, that would be: do you have proved solutions for water plant cybersecurity? I think that is the one.
Yeah. Yes, we do, because what we look at is we deal with technology that is in the customer's location. So as the gentleman had explained, we have solutions that cover all the main engineering suppliers. So be it ABB, Allen Bradley, Mitsubishi, Siemens, well, of course, your PLCs. And then as they go on into their different network and control buses, Profi, ASI, Inter, and so on. And as they move into the SCADA systems, each of these are built on technology that is industrial standard technology. And that's where we connect using our partners into these networks and these applications. And what we'll do then is we'll write specific rules. And even right now, our SIM systems have over 750 different types of rules that handle blunt attack with passwords, that look at malware exploding across the networks, that look at unauthorized access. So even though you might say the use case is water versus electrical versus telecommunications, the actual networks, the network approach, the designs, the rules engines are very, very similar. The aggressors use very, very similar attacks to just modify them. But if the question was, do we have water plants? Yes, we have actually quite a lot of customers in water plants, but also the technology we have is very, very malleable to sit into any type of water plant, which could be, desalination on ocean water versus hydro water for domestic use and so on. So yeah, we'd love to talk more about that.
Yes, it was an easy one, so I'll move to another more advanced technology. Okay.
Can I add something, Gabriel?
Please, Ahmed.
Yeah. So not only from a solution perspective, but we helped the water as well. It was in the Middle East Electricity and Water Authority, where we started with risk assessments. And then out of them was a remediation plan where we addressed them by defining the policies, procedures, and then selecting the countermeasures, implementing them and monitoring them accordingly. We have in the Asia Pacific, in Australia and New Zealand, water authorities that we have worked with for defining an IoT converged security operation centers as well.
Okay, thank you for your input. Please.
I'm sorry to pick the easy one as well, but I also have a story about a water plant. So this was one of the challenges. We were asked to test a water plant, and the particular system was a dam control. And so you have a very big reservoir in a dam, and it's all being controlled by SCADA, but they were using an RF radio-based system to communicate between the control center and the actual machinery that was opening and closing the dam. And so clearly when we try and test that, there's a danger to the public that if we test something and the test goes wrong, that we could flood the surrounding infrastructure. So there's actually a road that goes past this dam that we could have flooded. And so the solution was to replicate in miniature the dam. So we built a model of the dam, and we used the exact same control system. So we actually went out to the manufacturer and we got a duplicate RF control system that we could then test in our own test environment. And we were able to demonstrate that, yes, we could hijack that RF signal, and we could control the dam and completely bypass all of their control system center and just talk directly to the machinery sitting at the gate and open the floodgates. And we actually have a video of that demonstration online. I'll send you the link afterwards. You maybe can publish it, but it's quite a fun video of
I can imagine, yeah.
flooding a road. So yeah.
Thank you, Adam, for your input. I'll move to the next question, and it goes like this: more advanced technology seems to equal more cyber risks. How much the cybersecurity services cost, in addition to the cost of new digital technologies, as percentage of the latter? Can any of you risk an answer here?
I mean, if I understand the question correctly, the advanced technologies and even the cost of data breach is far more than the cost of countermeasures to reduce risks. So we have a service called Risk Quantification Service, where we can help you to empower you in front of your management to tell you what is the consequences of a plant or a process area critical would stop for a couple of days, and you tell us the amount, and we can calculate the risk quantification versus applying some controls that would be much less to plug it to secure environment than wait and get breached.
Yes, however, we are talking about sure real money against potential risk, and it always is kind of difficult to make a decision. Okay, I will go to the next question. We are all in video at the moment. And this goes like this: is IBM already active in cybersecurity service in Romania or in the Central or in Eastern Europe? Can you give us some insights on what are the specifics of your clients in the region? I suppose that the question goes into the direction if you discover that there are any specific differences in the organizations in this part of Europe against other parts of the world where you are active.
Yeah, maybe I can take this one. And I think it's partially I'm also going to echo what already has been said, right? So we are dealing with technologies and risks and the ways how we can address those risks. So it's about that. And we also talk about overall about how we are working with our clients and how we need to align with their specific requirements, specific needs, and areas they want to cover in terms of technology as well as threats. So just to simply answer to the question, if we do have a clients in CE region, yes, we do, and then basically we have plenty of clients. Some of those clients are interested in getting global service, and some of those clients are interested in getting EU-only service. And we are also able to deliver that simply because we have EU-only SOC located in Poland that is serving clients that have such needs. So that's in CE region, right? Many of clients are starting with simple IT security needs, right? So they want to be monitored when it comes to IT, and then they also express the needs. And hey, guys, do you provide any OT security monitoring? Do you provide any OT security services? And the answer is yes, we do provide. So, and in fact, a few days ago, I was working with one of the clients that wanted to start with IT, like I said, and then they realized that we do also provide OT specific services, and they are now working with us to create and build services for them as well.
Thank you, Rafael, for your answer. If any other input, please. No, I will.
I can. Well, also about
please.
Like
Mike.
I regularly talk. We have superb teams all the way from, if you like, consider Poland all the way to Kazakhstan. and they work with the IBM security organization. And if you need to get a list of who your local team might be, please contact one of us. We'll get that. But remember, not only where you have the frontline folks who speak local language, who are in the local regions, you have the people like ourselves standing behind them who will say that, hey, there's a client here in Kazakhstan, there's a client here in Bulgaria who is looking for water or energy management security. And of course, there's people like us who then help, like Adam and Ahmed and Rafael, who then stand right behind those guys. So yes, we cover the entire region with all the might that IBM brings worldwide.
Thank you, Mike. I'll go to the next question, and this is you talked about the 5-phase delivery for OT. I think that is related with the presentation from Ahmed. How long can such an approach take to deliver in case of an industrial plant? And this is also, I think, this can be related with the presentation from Adam. He also talked about 4-phase approach in checking the vulnerabilities of a potential client. Can you elaborate a little bit more on how long can these approaches take, please?
Thank you, Gabriel. And we often get this question. Actually, we have a live case. We did it in 6 months and one case in 9 months. Oh, I lost you. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So we do it in 6 months and we do it in 9 months. And actually, the only reason behind that is the site surveys takes time. The access to the plants, from getting the gate pass, material pass, sometimes we're not allowed to get anything except a paper and a pen when we're doing the site surveys. The team's availability of the OT team as well as the IT team in level 3.5 to come jointly and support us into the rollout, this is what consumes the time. If the teams is available, then we can squeeze, but so far from 6 to 9 months, you can be up and running, and based on the scope and complexity.
Yeah, so of course it depends on the how large the site is. If you have thousands or tens of thousands of data entries, probably is much more complicated. Adam, an input from your side?
Sure. So yeah, I mean, it's a hugely variable response to that. So at the simple end, if I'm testing an OT device and you're just sending me that device, normally it would be a 6 to 8 week engagement. Normally there's like a 2-week run up where we're preparing for the test, organizing logistics, which lab is going to look at the device. Are we doing it on site or in our own lab? And then we have about 6 weeks testing and then 2 weeks reporting and remediation. At the other end of the scale, I'm currently working on an AMI project. So that's advanced metering infrastructure. But that's interleaved with the entire rollout program. So this program has been designed in phases. So we actually have 5 phases of the program, which are interleaved with the client's rollout program. So it's over a 3-year period. So for the first year, we're testing components and infrastructure that are planned to be rolled out. And then in the second year, we're testing during rollout to make sure that they've actually implemented the systems correctly and that there's no, because it's not just a question of getting the technology to work properly, it's also a question of installing it correctly. So a lot of that may be configuration, proper network segregation and so on. And then the third year of the program is actually post rollout testing to make sure that everything's continuing to run smoothly and securely and helping them to set up an operation center and so on.
Thank you, Adam, for your answers, and I will come back to you because I have 1 or 2 questions of myself for you. But please allow me to present the last questions that we received from our audience, and this is related with how the teams from IBM work together with the clients, IT or OT teams, maybe especially this period of time with some constraints in moving, in changing places, but not necessarily. How do you work in general with your clients?
Yeah, so I can answer this one. So it starts at early engagement, to be honest, where we are discussing with the client, trying to understand what is the structure they have, if IT is actually operating somehow or cooperating with engineers, right? So because that's not always the case, but we have many clients that are having one big team, sister team that is standing, having two legs, one in one environment, the other one in the other one. We also have clients that do have separate processes that we need to follow, and we also so this kind of things are being agreed at the early engagement, and where we build communication matrix, we build communication plans, we build processes for that. And we also leverage technology that we have. So something that I was showing you, so the entire platform that is giving the access to for both teams. And we have governance program in place that is allowing to coordinate this as well. So there are a number of different ways of doing this, and we are able to align to client structure. We may have, like I said, IT specific discussions, we may have OT or combined together, right? So it depends on how clients are structured in their organization, but we are able to adopt to that structure.
Thank you for your answer. I told you I have two probably questions with short answers for Adam. One is the fact both of them are related with your study case you presented earlier on the smart grid company, where you discover some issues with the device, with the smart meter equipment. Please tell us if the glitch or the vulnerability you discovered allowed the customer to consume electricity without paying. That was the vulnerability.
That was one. I mean, basically they got so the device itself was running embedded Linux, which is a very common platform for OT and IoT devices. And we got full root access. So that basically means they can change the functionality in any way they like. Mm-hmm. So if they took the trouble to analyze the data being passed back to the head end, they could modify that. So they could completely replace the code and create effectively a man in the middle for their meter readings that subtracted 20% or 30% or whatever from the reading.
And the solution you found and proposed to the client was a software one, or implied changing something in the hardware of the equipment?
Yeah, there was some hardware design changes needed to make. Well, it wasn't needed. You could change it in software, because if you switch off all the console access and everything, there's nothing to hack into. But what we say from a secure by design point of view is when you go to full production, those interfaces that are not needed anymore, they're often there during the test phases. You need to be able to monitor real-time logging of the device. So you might have console access for the developer, but when you go to full production, that console access is not required anymore. So should be removed from the circuit. So if there's nothing on the circuit to attack, you can't attack it. So it's a layered approach. You should try and fix every layer, but the immediate remediation was to roll out a firmware upgrade, and then a rolling program of hardware improvements was also
a very lucky client you had. I know that in Romania we are unrolling this program with millions of smart meters to be installed in the next few years, and it is one of the concerns people expressed during the last months, and the confidentiality of the data, more precisely, not necessarily what you described earlier. But I think that most of the smart meters are built and buy and then installed. If you have a contract for 1 million units and you discover that you have to do some hardware change, it is something.
Yeah, so you really want to get these tests done before you deploy, because 1 million times a $10 fix is 10 million. So
yep.
Yeah.
Thank you all for this conversation, and we are closing to the finish. If you have, any of you, a final comment, anything that you'd like to add, please do it now.
Well, actually, I'm going to jump on one word you said, Gabriel. You said a lucky client, and therefore if they had been attacked, they'd be unlucky. I tend not to use that word unlucky. There is no such thing as an unlucky client. Unfortunately, it's just a person who has been ill prepared. So that's why. So it's a state of ill preparedness, not about being unlucky.
Yes,
so and it has to be always looked at.
And he discovered that he was lucky only after work with you. Otherwise, it would have been an unlucky client. Thank you very much, all of you, for this conversation. I think it was very useful for those watching us, and I'm looking forward for more cooperation, for more working together on this. There are many subject matters that are happening at the moment in Romania, and they have already happened in other parts of the world where you probably were before. So we have lots to discuss. Thank you very much, Michael, Kehoe, Ahmed El Nass, Rafał, Czerniewicz, Adam, Laurie, for this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll switch to Romanian now. Doamnelor și domnilor, mulțumesc! Pe data viitoare la o conferință propusă de Energynomics. Am fost așadar la webinarul propus de IBM pe tema securității și eficienței crescute în sistemele energetice și de utilități. La revedere!